I am currently in an undisclosed doghouse. They won't let me leave. And yeah, I'm also kind of sick, but I really want to get this video out because I feel very strongly about it. I'm pretentious about being pretentious, which is just something I thought would be funny to say wearing these. I am while wearing these. Pretentious is a word you probably hear a lot of people say online. It's a call-out buzzword that often leads to very long Twitter threads containing two people, the pretentious one and the other pretentious one. They're both pretentious. Okay, but what does pretentious even mean? The word pretentious, in essence, means that your view or your opinions on something, usually a piece of artwork, is hyperbolic. To be pretentious is how you carry yourself and your opinions. After the 2024 US presidential election, many people took to Twitter and Reddit proclaiming that Mike Judge's 2006 film Idiocracy was a documentary. This is ignoring the fact that, even allegorically, it isn't a documentary. The death of democracy isn't the system's fault, it's the people's, championed ignoramuses online, brazenly ignoring the fact that ignorance is a weapon kitted and utilized by the system. There are artworks that are generally considered to be inherently pretentious. A lot of people like to point out things like modern art, for example, Maurizio Catalan's 2019 art piece, The Comedian, which, quote, made a lot of people very angry, especially online. While I'd love to discuss my opinions on modern art, I am not qualified enough to do so. But you know what I am qualified to talk about? Bolero is a 1928 orchestral piece by French composer Maurice Ravel, and when I was in music college, a local orchestra was playing it. I had never heard Bolero and hardly knew what it was, but when I started listening to it for the first time, I was entranced. Despite being over 90 years old at the time, it felt experimental. Not me, 90. The piece was 90. It's from 1928. Bolero, in essence, is 15 minutes of the same musical lines, more or less, but the way Ravel was able to orchestrate an entire piece out of it with a full orchestra and more was just so crazy to me. It was sick. I loved seeing it. I wasn't alone in saying that it was great, but my naysaying peers saw the repetition of two musical lines tedious, boring, and uninspired. How could anyone think this is anything? They would ask. They found it pretentious, and I found them all the same. Music is a treasure trove of pretentious ideals. I mean, even the very concept of music theory being one all-defining thing is pretentious and also kind of white supremacist-y. But this is a short video, so we're gonna move on slightly to literature. In this Reddit thread, someone asked what is honestly a really interesting question to me. What does the cover art of Infinite Jest even mean? In true Reddit fashion, a naysayer, perhaps one fed up with the discourse surrounding a fascinating book, proclaimed, why don't we just go ahead and make an Infinite Jest circle jerk sub? Hilarious? Kinda. It is pretty funny. Does this support my case? Yes. People already find large books off-putting. So I can understand the idea of not wanting to read a book critics described as bloated, boring, gratuitous, and perhaps especially uncontrolled, as well as not worth the paper it's printed on, which I beg to differ. $40 or $1 per every 40 pages, a pretty good deal, I feel. Now, with all that said, am I myself pretentious? Yes, 100%. Have you seen my Joker 2 review? I spoke of that film the way a letterbox reviewer with an even ratings distribution speaks of The Godfather. But my point here wasn't to defend myself, it was to open a dialogue. Open a dialogue about being pretentious and what it actually means. And this is what I have to say. Art, in and of itself, isn't pretentious. The purpose of art is to express opinions, to express feelings. Art is inherently of the soul. Being pretentious is a matter of mind. Being pretentious comes from analysis. I also don't think being pretentious is bad. I know that's a hot take, but hear me out, you guys. The word pretentious, in its current state, is a pejorative. It was weaponized as a buzzword for ignorance to criticize art that makes people think. When we apply that word to art, we are demonizing the concept of experimentation, the concept of creation. Whereas if we apply it to the individual, we're criticizing ostracism and the holier-than-thou complex. The way one carries himself and their opinions can be inherently pretentious. Art and feelings cannot be inherently pretentious. We should allow us to think. We should allow art to let us feel.